All right, guys, it's all about bear because spring bear season is either open or opening soon. Let's roll. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is episode number 107, and I am coming at you from the Broken Tine Studio right here in Clark Fork, Idaho. Got a really good episode I'm excited to record tonight with my new friend, and I'm going to announce him in just a minute. And I just need to do a couple of announcements. If you guys are listening to this and are following along with us on Instagram, you know that we just released our turkey call giveaway from Phelps Game Calls. That is to include a box call, and a 3-reed pack for your mouth reeds, and then a black back mouth reed, which is as we speak. I just called in a couple of jakes yesterday for my girls who are 11 and 13, and we pulled a double. It was awesome. These jakes come across this meadow, and I'm with my buddy Tyler Oakes on his property. He lives 10, 15 miles away from me here, but he's got great turkey habitat over there. And we go over there. Me and him are calling. I'm using that black bat, and these jakes come across the meadow right up to within about 8 yards of where my daughter was sitting with my shotgun. And the crazy thing is they were behind this big tree. This tree is like, I'm not kidding you, it's 2 feet around. It's this huge tree. They wouldn't come around, so I'm behind my daughter. I pick her up and move her to the right to give her a shot. She takes a shot, drops one dead, kind of wounds the second one, and I grab the shotgun and hand it to my 13-year-old, who runs around the tree, and as the wounded one's trying to run off, nails that sucker. So it was awesome. It was an awesome hunt. So just a reminder, you guys, I kind of went off there on a tangent about that, but what a ball. Get your kids out and do some turkey hunting this year if you get a chance. But anyway, back to the turkey giveaway. That's like $100 package in that giveaway. So make sure what you're doing is it's all on Instagram. Jump on there, tag somebody who's not following the Western Huntsman, and that will get you entered into the random drawing for when I release this, it'll be this week. And then any new followers, since the post has been up, will be entered for the second place drawing, which is a 3-pack turkey reed giveaway from Phelps Game Calls as well, and some Western Huntsman stickers. So all sorts of good stuff. Just wanted to throw that out there. I also have... real quick, I got to pull this back up on my phone here. Hang on, bear with me. My buddy, I just wanted to do a shout out. I haven't done one of these for a while, but specifically to these guys in local 2032 District 1 East Jefferson Fire and Rescue over there in Western Washington. Ben Carver. You guys and your boys, I just wanted to give you guys a shout out. There was a rumor you guys are listening to the show there in the fire station. Right on. I appreciate that. I appreciate what you guys do. Thank you for your service. Again, Ben Carver, shout out to you and your firefighter friends there. Again, East Jefferson Fire and Rescue, District 1, Local 2032 in Western Washington. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it. All right, guys, this week I've got my new friend that I'm going to totally slaughter his last name, but I'm going to give it hell anyway. From the Western Bear Foundation, Joe, just say your last name, dude. I already forgot how to pronounce it.
Kondelis.
Kondelis. See, I was going to say Klondelis, so I'm glad you did that. Kondelis. And where does that name come from, man?
It's Greek.
Is it Greek?
It's actually been shortened a little bit since my great grandpa came over from Greece and was at Ellis Island and did that. And they actually, the name was spelt differently in Greece. We've done some back history, and when they spelt his name at Ellis Island, they spelt it like we spell it now, Kondelis.
Uh-huh.
It used to have like an O and a U and some more vowels in there. So yeah, it's a Greek name.
That's awesome. So
yeah,
have you ever been to Greece?
No, it's on my bucket list. We still have some family over there, long distance thirds and fourth cousins and stuff. But yeah, we haven't been, but I definitely want to hit that in Italy, or where kind of my roots are from.
Yeah, it's a cool trip, man. So I've been to Greece, and I regret when I went because I was, it was one of the stops when we were on a overseas deployment when I was in the military, right? And so I was young, and the focus was getting off the ship and going and partying. And
Heck
so
yeah.
I didn't really get to see any cool sights in Greece, and I really regret that. Now that I'm older, it's like, God, what the hell were we thinking? We just wanted to get off the ship and chase women and
go drink and chase girls.
Yeah,
I've
man.
been the same way and not appreciated it. It's funny how things change as you get older. You're
It
like,
totally does.
Man, I've missed out on a great opportunity. And at that time, no, you're not thinking about like, oh, I could go see all this neat stuff.
Right? I could have seen Athens.
Especially when you're in the military. Yeah, you're just like, oh, we're on leave. I'm out of here.
Yeah, it sucks. I really do regret that, but it is what it is. At least I can say I've been there, I suppose.
Heck yeah.
I don't remember much of it because,
You did it right.
when you let Marines out in a foreign town, they about shut it down and burn it down. So that's about all I remember. So Cody, or I'm sorry, you're in Cody.
Yep.
Joe is in Cody, Wyoming, and what do you do again for the Western Bear Foundation?
Oh, I call myself the chief volunteer because we're an all-volunteer organization. So we don't have any paid staff or anything. So I kind of am essentially the founder and current acting president or executive officer, whatever you want to call it. We don't really have a lot of titles here, but so been in Cody this is my 17th year. I think I originally come from Southwest Montana in Butte. But we've been here for like 17 years and just absolutely love it here. And kind of started the foundation in my mind with a buddy all the way back in like 2002, 2003, living in Montana, and didn't get it kicked off and get I'd say I didn't get my poop in a group until about 2005 and 6 to try and figure out how to start a nonprofit, which is not something I learned ever. And
it's not easy.
So no, it was just like no one to go to learn. And it's kind of like bear hunting. A lot of people aren't keen on sharing secrets, which is why one of the reasons we like to start the group was because we wanted an organization that people could go to and lean on for like advice, tips, and tricks, amongst a lot of other things. But
cool.
Yeah, that's kind of how the foundation got started, and we're going strong now.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Let's circle back to talking about Cody for a minute. Now I did have somebody in Cody on the show like a year ago. I'm trying to remember that because I said that, I'm not going to remember his name, but he is an awesome dude that is, we talked about grizzly bears and some of the grizzly bear encounters over there.
Oh yeah, gosh.
And so I was telling him, like Cody is kind of a special place for me. I love Cody, Wyoming. My wife and I almost moved there back in 2012, I believe.
Wow.
We went down there like 4 or 5 times over a summer and looked at houses and all sorts of stuff. We almost moved there. Anyways, what was his name? That is going to drive me crazy.
What was the context of why he was on? Was he a part of a group or anything?
No. So he's a resident down there, and we were hunting. I'm trying to pull it up here in the.
I feel like it was Dan, but I could be wrong.
I don't know if it was Dan. I'll look it up. I'll find it by the time. I'm going to feel bad if he listens to this, and it's a brain fart. Not that I don't remember.
Well, 107 shows in,
Yeah.
it's probably easy to forget. That's a lot. That's pretty cool.
It was an interesting conversation because I brought up that little restaurant there in Cody that I still think about a lot. It's that little red building. It's like a steakhouse. Ron Nijoliak.
Oh, Ron. I know Ron well.
Yeah.
Big bow hunter. Yep.
Yeah. Big time bow hunter.
Some great stories and
Yeah.
yeah, great dude. Yeah, I did see Ron was on a while back. For some reason it didn't occur to me either.
Yeah, I totally spaced his name there. So sorry, Ron.
Yeah.
If you're listening, buddy. Gosh, I'm gonna have to send him a T-shirt or something now after that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I love Cody, man. It's actually the spot where I don't know if I told this story or not, but I was kind of messaging you. I got up early, left my wife and kids over at the hotel in town there, and I went fishing. Is it the Shoshone River right out of there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fishing that bad boy, and it had rained the night before, so I was the first one down this trail early in the morning, and I'm down there fishing, whatever. I think I caught a couple of fish, and then turn around and walk back up that trail, and there were grizzly bear tracks covering my tracks from walking in an hour prior to that. And it was nuts, and I took some pretty good pictures of it somewhere.
There's no shortage of them in this country, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, we might talk a little further on that. So I want to get back to the Western Bear Foundation and kind of what in your mind, what is the mission of the Western Bear Foundation before we go into some of this other stuff?
Yeah, I think the quick and easy elevator pitch is we want to be an organization that advocates for bears and bear hunters. So two sides to our kind of plan, and one of our founding platforms was to be the go-to group for bear hunters out there that are advocating for the sport, trying to make sure that we are doing everything we can to ensure a future for our sport and our hunting heritage, specifically black bear hunting. And hopefully grizzly hunting. That was another platform of ours, was to do what we could do as a foundation to delist the grizzly bear. And there's a lot that we've done in the past and continue to do to try and do that. But so one side of the token, we're like all in on hunting and want to make sure we are protecting bear hunting for sportsmen in the United States. And on the other side, we really are kind of fine tuning, and we've done so much conflict mitigation work for grizzly bears. Like most of the money for quite a few years was going into electric fences, bear-proof storage containers, bear-proof garbage cans. And our thought was the more grizzly bears we keep on the landscape, the easier it is to get them delisted, rather than kind of going the other way that people think like, oh, let's just kill them all. Yeah. Like, well, we're never going to get them delisted that way. And we want hunting seasons. We want state regulation. We want the states to control the grizzly bear. And so that was what we did for a while. And now we're kind of like still doing that, but we're able to do a lot more on black bear research, which is what we really wanted to do for a long time. Because if you look back, and there's some states doing some stuff now, but we really haven't done a lot with black bears in the West in quite a few years. There's not a lot of states that can definitively give a good estimate on how many black bears we are in each state. You know, they just say we're around this number, but you can damn sure know how many grizzly bears are in the greater Yellowstone or Northern Continental Divide ecosystem. So we kind of thought like, you know, the grizzly bear is taking a lot of the money, funding, and research away from black bears. Yeah, probably because black bears are they're not a resource concern. You know, we have them everywhere. They're almost in all 50 states, if not already. There's more black bears on the landscape now than there's ever been. And so people don't think we need research, but I kind of think the other way. Like we're starting to see mange come up in the east, and we're seeing things that can affect large populations. And so what we've been really striving for the last few years is getting black bear research in states, population studies, density studies. We're doing a huge one in Wyoming right now that's really kind of cutting edge. That we have a grad student working with the University of Wyoming, an assistant professor working on it, and the university or the Wyoming Game and Fish doing a lot of work. And we're going to try and get population estimates through DNA hair collection on several different mountain ranges in the state. And we're also looking at harvest vulnerability bears over bait, which we can bait in Wyoming, but we see a lot of the same age class getting killed in Wyoming over baits.
Like younger bears, or?
Yeah, middle.
Middle?
I think we're trying to decide whether or not baiting is we're continuing to kill the same age class while we see big bears like age out and maybe not get killed. And we have theories. As I've bait and run baits myself, and them big ones, as you know, are really hard to get in the daylight.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to understand that. So we're actually like including hunter reports on bait sites. They're logging baits, what they use. If we had collar bears in the areas where they're baiting, that we can see what bears that we have collared are using baits and when. And so it's going to be a really cool deal when it's all said and done. And I'm hoping it kind of sets the stage for a couple other states to get involved and start looking at black bears as an important piece of wildlife that they have, and not just some throwaway species that, we offer tags. We really don't know anything about them.
Yeah. So to the grizzly bear point, how long have they been over management objective for the ESA?
Over 10 years.
I was going to say, I want to say, but you're the bear expert. I want to say it was like 2008 or 2009. Yeah,
and we asked for delisting.
And
so they've been delisted twice in the greater Yellowstone.
Yeah, I do know that. Yep.
And then they've been over objective. We've met the recovery criteria for, I believe it's like 13 years now. I could be wrong on that. That's not gospel. I try and keep all the numbers in my head, but the recovery criteria is what they have to go off of. And there's like 3 or 4 different things. And once all those things are met, that they can be deemed recovered by the Endangered Species Act. And that has been done for a decade, and we're still sitting on listed population of bears.
Do you happen to know what those 3 things are that need to be achieved in order to delist the bears?
You are gonna test me, aren't you? So I know one is
I'm super curious.
One is sows and cubs, and there has to be an X amount of those. There is not genetic diversity, I don't think. I don't want to speak on it because
and that's okay.
I have it.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up after this conversation, because that is something that it piques the grizzly bear thing piques my interest, and I've talked about this quite a bit on the show. That the fact that they were delisted, and then through these grizzly bear advocacy groups and animal rights activist groups, they found judges that would put them back on the endangered species list. And so anyway, the point is obviously for a guy like me, I live in grizzly country as well. Now it's not as thick and as active as right there outside of Cody. But we do have them. We do have them in this area. In fact, there was even the Fish and Game, Idaho Fish and Game, last September put this warning out as to this particular sow grizzly that was in a this specific kind of drainage area, the day after I'd spent all day in that specific drainage hunting. And so it was interesting. But like where I live, if you go south into like Unit 4 and 4A and all those, there's a couple of grizz in there, but not many. But if you cross the Clark Fork River and go into Unit 1, into the Cabinet Mountain Range, we have a ton of grizzlies up there. And so I feel like that river's my buffer. They don't want to swim across it or something. But
for now.
Yeah, for now. Give them time. They just need the right motivation, right? And so it's a big topic for me, and one that I want to dive into more, because I feel like I don't have like you can ask me a lot of things about wolves and wolf management and management objectives and state objectives for keeping them off the endangered species list and all that kind of stuff, and I can answer all that. When it comes to grizzly bears, I'm kind of lost with it, and so that's what that said, I still have big opinions about why they should be delisted, and there should be state management. I have very big opinions about that and how that relates to human grizzly interaction and how that mitigation could be changed through hunting seasons and behaviorally. We can go on and on and on about that. So
it's kind of a weird thing, like because of the most recent delisting and then petition to relist, and then the Judge Christensen in Missoula upholding that, and we lost our hunting seasons and they went back on the list. Mm-hmm. There was some different things that came up the first time we got them delisted. So the first time we got them delisted, there was like this concern over white bark pine crop and their natural food, and all that. Those numbers are down, so we can't delist them. This last time was a lot of paperwork stuff. It was like little loopholey things, and one of them was genetic diversity. They said, well, the greater Yellowstone ecosystem bear doesn't have enough genetic diversity. Well, part of the recovery plan is to have genetic diversity, and they said, well, there is enough per the plan. But he said we would like to see more of that, and there were some other things that came up, and so it was a lot of like wording. So now in the new petition to delist, the state of Wyoming and Idaho did a petition as well. A lot of it's been changed, the wording, like instead of not relocating out of state to supplement genetic diversity, simply they changed the wording and said, we will translocate or we'll locate bears out of state. If we capture them in Wyoming, we'll move one to Montana if we think that we need to augment genetics. And so a lot of that stuff was little tiny things, but like for instance, so now I have it up here now. The recovery criterion is a minimum population size for the greater Yellowstone, which right now we're sitting well over probably 1,100 bears easily, conservatively. We have to manage just in the greater Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Yep. We have to manage for 500. So we're 600, 700 over objective there.
Yeah.
Breeding female occupancy. So that was the one. And we have to make sure that 16 of the 18 units within the greater Yellowstone, so they break the greater Yellowstone recovery zone into units, and 16 to the 18 of those have to be occupied by females with offspring over a 6-year period. That has been done for a long time. So that one's kind of out. The other one is mortality limits, and it's to ensure that annual mortality rates are not exceeding a certain amount for independent males, independent females, independent young. And so all those things have been done.
Regardless of the cause of mortality, that's just kind of taking that into account.
That's just, yeah. And so they base it off of what the estimated population is. And then they say these are the mortality thresholds that we can sustain. And even though there's years where we in Wyoming are removing 40-something bears, we're still well within that. So much so that's how we got the hunting season quotas.
Yeah.
They said the deaths of bears from last year was this number. You had X amount left in the threshold. That's how many bears you can harvest on a hunting season. And now it's interesting because Montana did a petition on their own. So the Wyoming Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem petition is a MOA petition, a memorandum of understanding. So 3 states petitioned together on that one. And then independently, some states issued a petition on their other populations. So Montana issued a petition on their Northern Continental Divide ecosystem. So, and then Idaho did one separate as well. So there's 3 petitions to the list right now at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Gotcha. So, and I did know that about, I didn't know Montana did the same thing. But I remember when Idaho, and it was just recently.
Yeah, very recent.
But I can't remember if it was for the Cabinet Mountain, which is the mountain range just north of me here. That eco, region, or if it was the one down by kind of like that, just out of Yellowstone, the Island Park, or if that is included in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem.
That'll be in the greater Yellowstone.
Okay, so
that's in that greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Yeah.
That must have been the one Idaho listed then as the Cabinet Mountains, the Cabinet Mountain Range. I'm not sure if I'm naming it right, but it is basically the population that is up here in Unit 1 out of the Cabinet Mountains there. So with all this, this is interesting having you on, man, because Joe, you've been involved heavily with bears, both grizz and black bears and all this, bear stuff for going on a couple of decades here. What is your sense and what is your reaction to a lot of the stuff taking place right now? Like our friends in Washington just basically lost their spring bear season. I don't know if they'll ever get that back or if that's how viable that is. We're looking at California, who seems to, like clockwork every year, have this Humane Society of the United States come with this petition to get rid of their spring bear hunting season or bear hunting in general. Because it really bothers certain senators in downtown San Francisco that people bear hunt. So I want to get like your reaction, what a lot of some of your takeaways with a lot of the fights that are taking place right now, because bears are a sensitive topic. Yeah. I don't know what it is, and maybe that's something you can answer. Like, what is it about bears, this predator? I get it, they're an iconic species, but in my mind, every species in the West is iconic. A snowshoe hare is iconic. These are all great Western species, and bears are, like you alluded to earlier, I mean, they're in pretty much the entirety of the lower 48 in Canada, and obviously Alaska. Do they have black bears? They don't have black bears in Hawaii, right? Or do they?
Not to my knowledge.
Maybe
Not
they have.
to my knowledge.
Maybe they have some.
That might be the last of the 50 that we have.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So, I'm. Well, I won't go there yet. We'll circle back to that mindless thought I just had. But your takeaway as to what's been going on the last couple of years with these advocacy groups that just have this emotional attachment to bears and this negative reaction to managing them through hunting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and it's something that we talk about a lot, and it boils down to the fact that predators in general garner a lot of support from anti-hunting woke leftists. Mm-hmm. And they think that we as, conservationists, sportsmen, whatever, are trying to eradicate predators to ensure future large populations for ungulates. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. But so they grab onto things like predators and look at what society and TV, cartoons, television, all our lives has done with predators is they've turned them into cuddly, friendly things that are so far from the truth and the reality. And so people get with that, and it's low-hanging fruit, right? Let's go after bear hunters. Yeah, and it's like Yogi, and you look at Jungle Book and all these open season, all these these cartoons that they so as kids, it's being indoctrinated into their head, and then as they get older, if they're not around it like we are, we get out of that, right?
Can I challenge you on one thing?
Yeah.
You said that hunters are wanting to basically, we want a predator hunt, and we want to control these predators solely for the reason of having more ungulate species so we can hunt them on the landscape.
Not all hunters, but some do.
Yeah, true. And I would chime in that I'm super real. I'm very much a realist with this stuff. I don't mind admitting I want fewer wolves so there are more elk. That is not the only reason, though. That is not the only reason. I am frustrated with like elk numbers being so heavily reduced in Idaho because the wolves are out of control. I don't want to eliminate wolves entirely. I just want them controlled so the other species can thrive and hunting is fruitful. And this is the same way like Native Americans, when they managed the population of species on the North American continent, they had the same concept. They understood the importance of the balance of all these different species on the landscape, but they wanted the predator species controlled because they were in direct competition with their main food source. Now, we don't have that dynamic, but I do think that most hunters are dynamic thinkers enough to know that these species are here to stay, whether you love them or hate them. The wolves are not going away, right? And I don't mean to get off the bear topic,
No, and wolves and bears are a little bit different, I think. So
totally.
I'm kind of with you.
I'm
With
just
wolves, like we have to knock those buggers down.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just using those as an example in terms of the predator control, the motivations for a lot of hunter. I think that it is important that we include the fact that we do want the predators controlled to an extent so that there are more ungulate species. But that is how it is supposed to be. That is how it's supposed to be. And
that's one thing that we always advocate is like we want a lot of bear hunting opportunity. We know that's a species that has to be managed. We are looking for ways to do it and more, opportunities. And that's important. I think where I get a little frustrated with giving the anti-spotter is when I see a Facebook post or an Instagram post of a guy that kills a bear and all it says is saved another fawn or calf today. I'm like, the only reason you went out hunting was to save a calf and you shot a 3-year-old bear. It's like, I get that. And maybe that is your motivation, but it's also like, I don't hunt bears for that reason. I hunt bears because I freaking love hunting bears, the challenge. I love the species. If I kill a bear and maybe I save a calf, that's an indirect thing. That's great. But I don't do it for that reason.
That's not why you're out doing it. Yeah.
No, and I think a lot of people think that's why we're out doing it. But see, the anti-woke left is, and I hope I don't piss any of your listeners off by saying that. I doubt you have any of the that demographic.
I was gonna say, if I haven't pissed them off yet, I wouldn't worry.
But we as predator hunters are low-hanging fruit, right? There's less of us trapping, cat hunting, bear hunting. It's just their foot in the door, and they're like, those guys are not as organized as ungulate groups or cervid groups like Rocky Mountain elk, wild sheep. Those guys are organized. Mule Deer Foundation, Muley Fanatics, whoever you want to talk about in the mule deer space. And so they look at that as like, we can get some support from people that don't know anything about hunting, because we're going to show these bears and these cats and coyotes in a light that are different than what they should be viewed as. And so they get a ton of support, and then they're attacking us so calculated. It's not on some whim that we're seeing this. Like, when you look at different ways they can hit us, whether it's at the judicial level, filing a court order, a petition, with the commission level at game and fish commissions, and they're doing it legislatively. So we this year had all 3 of those happen, and we had a commission attack in Washington. We are having a commission attack in California. We've had some legislative stuff in Colorado where they're using legislators. They're trying to get bills passed. And in Colorado, you can't spring bear hunt because a long time ago they passed a bill. They didn't even do that in commission.
Was that a legislative action brought on by a voted petition thing that the general public voted on?
Yeah, and so
I can't remember
those are really hard to change, right? And so when they get beat, that's what they tried to do in California last year. They had a senator that was going to try and carry this bill, and we rallied the troops, and everyone flooded his inbox and called his office, and he's like, whoa, okay. And he was, like you said, just some dude in downtown San Francisco that's doesn't even know anything about black bear management. But hey, I can hang my hat on this. I'm a young senator.
Yeah, I'm a young senator. I've got all these super woke leftists that run around without any real meaning in life, so they have to attach themselves to a cause that they know nothing about. And I'm trying to stay as calm as I can. But
it's so true. That's exactly what's happening.
That is the root cause of our lives being meddled in because of their clueless nonsense brought on by this wokeism.
Emotion. Yeah, and it's just wokeism. There's no rational thought process being used. And that's why traditionally, a long time ago, commissions were formed. And these states said, let's have a game and fish commission of people that know what they're talking about and dealing with and manage these issues, because we in elected office don't really know. And a lot of them, even in states like ours, are clueless to wildlife management. When something happens at the commission level, you hope that the people that are appointed by a governor to be in that position are going to be your ally as a sportsman. Now, they might vote on things you don't like because you want to see this hunting season extended, but it's not. Okay, that's different. What you see happening in Washington is a flipping of that commission from a hunting, conservation-based kind of demographic on that commission to a pretty much anti-hunting preservationist mentality. And the governor there has appointed people that will be on there for 6 years now.
Yep.
So even if he's gone, the new governor will have to deal with them. And so that commission is now not a friend of the sportsmen. And they're doing some pretty scary things over there.
Yeah.
That is the next big thing that I think we're going to see happen in the West is, okay,
commissions
you can fight us legislatively. Yeah, I think people are going to start trying to get governors in place. This is where it comes really important for sportsmen. You can't, and you know, we always say go to the voting box because your vote counts, like even with your local and state senator, but your governor too. Mm-hmm. But we as sportsmen, they don't carry the vote in Washington. Sportsmen are so outnumbered, no matter what they do, they're not going to get the right guy in there.
Totally. And it's like three counties. It's like 3 counties in the state of Washington that run that demographic controls the entirety of the state. Because if you get outside of those 3 counties, Washington is a cool place, and it's full of cool people. They're like-minded folks. They're sportsmen. They're folks like us that just want the government out of our freaking business, and we want to live our own lives and go hunting and fishing and pass down those traditions. But you go into those 3 counties where these people just live on top of each other like this, you know, and they get this mindset, this what is that called? That groupthink where they don't even know what they're talking about. They're just agreeing with each other. And you know what was really telling, Joe, is I emailed Lorna Smith, the commissioner one of the commissioners over there, who's a pretty vocal anti-bear hunting, one of the no votes on the spring bear commission. I emailed her asking her to come on the show and let's have a discussion about it. This was before the vote went down. Let's why don't you come on the show, bring me your case, and I'll give you my case, and we'll discuss the matter of spring bear hunting, because I would love, you know, actually, how did I put that? Something about a person in your position should be heard by the people you are essentially representing, and they need to hear it from you. Like, nobody hears it from you other than some of the people that chime in at the meetings. And her response was, I don't see any point to that because it seems like everybody has made up their mind. And Joe, what that tells me...
she doesn't know anything about it.
Exactly. And what that tells me is it's not that everybody else has made up their mind, it's that you have made up your mind. You have made up your mind. You are the one that has been swayed or bought or whatever by whoever to vote against a spring bear hunt based in absolute garbage, theoretical, non-proven emotion. It's ludicrous.
It's funny because that same demographic of people that are dictating and want us to be controlled and do and manage us as sportsmen come from that same branch of people that are like, we all have to get along. Let's see each other as who we are and not be, you know, it's like if you do that, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm going to do my thing over here. And we kind of stay out of each other's way. It's turning out that sportsmen are like, look, I don't care what you do. Just leave me alone. And they are in that point now where they're the other way around, whether it's their way or the highway. And they want us all to live like they do and be a bunch of freaking left woke idiots that just follow along like sheep and are told what to do. That's what they want. They don't think for themselves. They like to be told what to do because thinking's hard. And they're just going to do whatever is going to benefit their party or them. And they have to attack people like us that are just simple people trying to live a life that we don't, you know, honestly, I could give 2 craps less of what you do in Seattle or Denver. And I really don't care. But like, why can't you have that same feeling and thought about what I do here?
Exactly. It's a good old fashioned live and let live scenario. It's a good old mind your business and mind your manners kind of scenario where that just doesn't happen for some reason. And it all sorry, any Democrat friends I have out there, but it comes from the left. It's entitlement. It is entitlement. You are not entitled to dictate my life. I use the vegan thing as a perfect example. I have no problem with people wanting to be vegan. The problem is the large majority of vegans who find it their business to determine what my dietary needs are and what my diet, like I have some rule that I need to follow because you're emotionally attached to the notion that being a vegan saves the environment and doesn't kill anything. You're wrong. You're wrong.
It's true.
But it's not your business, right?
Exactly. And that's one thing. We've really strayed in this country, and I don't think I have to tell anyone that listens to your show that, because they're here for a reason. We all believe the same way, and I don't know how we're going to get back to that. I think we've just had too many people that have had it too easy in life that feel like whatever they have as their opinion and their way of life is like they've never had to be challenged. They've never been told no. They get their way all the time, and probably as kids. And that's the way they want it as adults, and they throw hissy fits when they don't get it. And now a hissy fit is, well, I'm going to get on the commission, or I'm going to call a senator, or I'm going to get a bill passed, and that's where we're at now.
I'm going to donate to the Humane Society of the United States a bunch of money so that they can run around claiming they're doing something for wildlife, which they're not. And,
exactly.
and if you don't like it, then you're offending me, and you're a bad person. And if you're not a vegan, you're a bad person. I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't have to supplement my diet with any kind of pill, so I'm good. Like, leave me alone.
Just leave me be.
You just leave me alone, and that's all it is. Like, I don't even want to be mean to vegans, except for when they come at us, and anti-hunters, except for when they come at us. I just don't understand.
It's a funny thing too, because that group is so mad that they're not more in the conversation of wildlife conservation, because we as hunters pay the bill for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in every state, $100 and fishing license dollars are paying for the brunt of conservation in those states. And we should have a better voice. Well, now they're figuring out how to circumvent. They're like, look, we go to the meetings and no one listens to us because all we do is argue and yell and are irrational. So they are circumventing that. And that's what we as sportsmen have got to be prepared for. Like, we have got to understand that it's not going to be as simple as them showing up at a season setting meeting anymore. They're going to figure out ways to sue, to get a bill passed, or to flip a commission. That's what's going to happen.
Yep. That's a great point, Joe. That is like a three-pronged strategy that they have laid out, and kudos to them for figuring this out, because as hunters, we're so focused on our lifestyle and hunting and our next season and what bow is out or what rifle we want to get. We've been asleep at the wheel with this. And meanwhile, these organizations have been funding themselves. They've been organizing, and they've been strategizing and planning. I'll tell you one problem where, kind of down in your neck of the woods, if you cross through the park and end up in Jackson, Wyoming, man, what the hell is going on with that town? Like, what in the hell, man? I used to go there as a kid. It was the coolest town in the world. And now it's like this cesspool of animal rights advocates and pro-wolf and pro-grizzly groups that are born out of this. Yep. Like the fuck is in the water there? Where are these people getting their information?
No one in Jackson's from Jackson anymore. That's the problem.
No.
Like that Wyoming way of life and Eastern Idaho kind of mentality that we had down there. We talked about it at work the other day. What an amazing area. My goodness. Like, for the frickin' state of Wyoming, that is one of the greatest places. But then you go there, and some of my biggest haters are there. It's the blue part of our state in Wyoming. I'll say that.
And it's funny too, because it's not just kind of a shade of blue. It's dark blue. I mean, it is like, there are some crazy ass groups if you get on Instagram and find them, like these pro-wolf groups.
They're all based out of there.
Wow. Like, really, seriously.
You got that photographer. There's a lot of great sportsmen that are photographers, but a lot of the Jackson photographers are not sportsmen.
No.
And they're making a ton of money off the resource that we pay to have on the landscape for. This grizzly bear, the only reason the photographers in Jackson and some of these areas that are anti-hunting don't want grizzly bears hunted is because there goes their cash cow. If we get a couple of the bears reduced, how are they going to make money on grizzly bear pictures? And so it's because there's so many angles to it.
There is so many angles, Joe, and that's a great point you make, because what they don't understand, well, they might understand, I don't know, but what the reasonable consequence to a hunting season for a grizzly bear, like right now, and I just talked about this on a recent episode, but the grizzly bears have nothing to fear. That's why, we've got people out there getting killed, and somebody goes out shed hunting and they get wiped out by a damn grizzly bear. Grizzly bears fear nothing. A good, robust hunting season that manages the numbers, controls the numbers, and puts a little bit of fear of humans into the behavioral aspect of a grizzly bear will go a long way. Grizzlies are a lot like wolves. They will learn super fast to avoid humans. And so that's going to make it even more tough for them to go get their pictures. And it's funny you say that, because there was a group in Jackson, and I follow these guys on Facebook, or not Facebook, on Instagram, because they provide me with all sorts of fun content. But they talked about the exact thing you just brought up, Joe, is like they're going, when it comes to funding for the state of Wyoming and wildlife management, wildlife photographers and bird watchers raise more money than hunters do. But they were talking specifically about wolf hunting, and the dollars that wolf hunting and trapping generate in the state of Wyoming. So it's an unfair argument, because there's a lot of hunters that are also wildlife photographers. So you don't know if they're there photographing elk in the park and then turning around and going hunting elk on the Montana side or something, right?
Yep.
You don't know if they're fly fishing one day and then wildlife photography the other day and then the bird watching the third day. Yeah, they don't know how to put that together. Plus, they conveniently leave out all other hunting fees of that is involved with Wyoming hunting. When you take just the wolf hunting tags that are sold, sure, there's probably more tourism dollars from those other things. But when you start putting in deer, elk, bear, and the non-resident fees and fishing licenses and all these other things, there's no competition. I'm sorry.
No, and the funny thing too is, we get back on what these groups are doing and how they're calculated. Is you have, say, two groups, say Center for Biological Diversity in Western Watersheds.
Uh-huh.
Like the sportsman groups are busy with a lot of things. Us all volunteer, don't have a lot of people. And you got all these groups, but these groups, is all they do is find ways to litigate and do a bear bait ban and do this and that. And then it comes time to put their money where their mouth is. And it's like, you want to do something for bears? Okay, give us $100,000 for this black bear research program. Oh, we don't know. So it's like, and I would never ask them, but I'm trying to highlight a point is none of them spend money on the resource they're trying to protect. All they're trying to do is litigate to ensure that hunters can't go out and hunt. So they don't care about the animal.
So what you're saying is they're raising money and asking people for money to raise to litigate and pay for attorneys and stuff like that versus
exactly. Yep. And then how they line their pockets are there's the shit, I don't know why it escapes me, the Equal Act of Justice or Equal Justice Act or whatever.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, if they sue the federal government and win, they get paid.
Yep.
And so how do they stay relevant? How do people donate to them? Well, the people that are donating to them want to see them doing something. I don't like bear hunting. Okay, we will litigate if you give us money. We'll stop bear hunting in the West. Okay, I'll give you $2 million. So they do a suit. They get $2 million. If they lose, they're like, oh, sorry, we'll try again. So that's how they stay relevant, right? They're not doing anything on the ground to stay relevant.
Exactly.
Like we are. They're just litigating, and then their membership's like, great job, here you go, more money. And then they're like, hey, by the way, we won that case, so we got paid by the federal government, which is taxpayer dollars, mine and yours.
Yep.
So that's how they stay relevant. Like if you look back at some of their work, it's not a lot of it's on the resource they are claiming to try to protect.
No, it's almost, it's laughable how much is actually towards a resource, especially loud, boisterous organizations like the Humane Society of the United States. They don't do jack shit for wildlife management. They don't do shit. I'm sorry.
No, it's true. Like I've never seen, and I could be wrong, but I've never seen this project was funded by the Humane Society and Center for Biological Diversity to try to understand ungulate populations.
Dude, am writing a book. I'm writing a book, and I'm legitimately trying to find things that the Humane Society of the United States, which is the largest funded anti-hunting organization I could find. Well, I don't know if I should say that. I don't know if they're the largest or the highest funded. But put it to you this way: they rake it in. They rake in millions and millions of dollars. I want to say it's around $160 million a year. And anyway, I really tried between their website and searching for projects or habitat improvement or species development, research, all these things to try to get some real information of good things they've done. And literally, I'm not kidding you, they saved some dogs from families with coronavirus and stopped a department store from selling fur. None of which is wildlife management related.
No, they got some big executives they got to pay.
They do. I mean, some big money, big donors. And so you're exactly right, man. We could do this like all week, man. We can make the longest podcast ever about this.
There's a really cool group out there. I know you know of them, but Howl for Wildlife is doing a good job of bringing more of this to light. And like trying to kind of be that equalizer and make sure that we as sportsmen, because the sportsman community and fishing and just anyone that outdoor recreates or is a consumptive user, I'll say, we have the same tools that the anti-hunting and the leftist woke group does. We just are not great at using them as a whole. We're getting better. And I think that's where this like Howl comes in, and us using our social media presence and email and being able to get out there. It's like we can do the same thing they're doing, and we just need to continue to try and advance in that space, because that's where they're really strong. So they took social media to another level to get support. We can do the same thing. We just need to, it's crazy when you look at like, I think some of these states where you think there's a ton of sportsmen, there are, but like you just don't get a ton of engagement from them on issues. And a lot of it's because they just don't know, or they don't know where to find it. And so that's a huge challenge for our groups.
Well, and they're not, one of the ways that I've explained that, Joe, is they're not activists, right? Hunters are, and I'm not saying that as like I'm throwing rocks or anything. That's just the nature of it. We're people. I almost said dudes, but there's, I can't say that. Like my daughters nailed some turkeys yesterday. It's a sport that's got there's some growing parts of the demographic, like female hunters, as I was just saying that aspect is growing. But the thing is it's just the nature of who we are as a people. We're hardworking. A lot of us are blue collar guys or gals, and our minds are on raising our families and making sure there's food on the table and looking forward to the next hunting season and saving our money to buy that new scope for our elk rifle. All those things that kind of play into our lives, where, it's not like we were raised to be activists or we feel entitled to impose our lifestyle on other people. So that breeds activism in itself, where the other side, the anti-hunting side, they are activists. These are activists, and they're fanatics.
They're professional.
They're professional. Exactly. That's a great point. They're professional at this. They've had a lot of time to put all this together in a strategic way with a lot of funding and a lot of bullshit science that they claim is science that is really just it's BS. Like in Washington, this whole discussion, I'd love to get your take on this. This whole discussion about we shouldn't hunt spring bears because they come out and they're lethargic and blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing. I live in North Idaho, where we have some pretty horrendous winters. And you're in Cody. I think you get more wind than I'll ever dream of.
Oh, gosh.
But here it is. As the date of this recording, it is the 14th of April, which means spring bear opens tomorrow in the state of Idaho. The bears are already awake. They've been awake for a couple of weeks. I've had them on my cameras. They're already moving around. It's not like we're sitting there like Elmer Fudd outside of a cave waiting for the bear to come out and yawn and rub its eyes and then bam! That's not how it works, Lorna Smith. That's not how that shit works.
It's so absurd.
What's your take on it, man? Let's take a quick break to give our show sponsors some well-deserved love. Let's start with Scree Extreme Mountain Gear. High-performance hunting attire and gear. Scientifically tested camo patterns, complete layering systems, and in my opinion, the finest merino wool products to keep you warm, dry, and comfortable. It's all backed by a great company. Some of my personal favorites in the Scree lineup are the hard scrabble pants for early to mid-season, and then as it gets colder, I switch to the Kodiak pants for late season. The Bridger glassing mitts are like game changers, and I love the Nebo rain gear. Scree offers great packages on the website as bundles, like the elk bundle, that will completely outfit you for your favorite hunt. Oh, and my favorite part? You won't need to refinance your house to get outfitted. Try the starter bundle for less than $500. It's an insane deal. With the VIP sizing guarantee, you can exchange something that doesn't fit for free. I just had to do this for something that I got my wife. It was a little big, so I just sent it back. They covered the shipping both ways and exchanged it for the right size. So go to screegear.com and at checkout, use promo code The Western Huntsman for 15% off and free shipping. Phelps Game Calls, one thing that I love about companies that are born out of hunting is their story. Like Phelps Game Calls, the American success story that walks us through how something started small and grew into something big. Like Phelps, he started this company kind of as a hobby in his garage in 2009. Now, a little over a decade later, Phelps is one of the premier hunting call companies on the planet for good reason. They're the most realistic calls on the market, and that is saying something. Check out the AMP lineup. For predator calls like the 3-pack POR 123 or the Fawn in Distress, check those out. Turkey calls, get a diaphragm, a pot call, or a box call, and a complete line of waterfowl calls. Hit up the website and at checkout, use promo code Huntsman10 for 10% off. Phelps Game Calls, get them close. The Elk Collective. The best investment for hunting success is what's between your ears. Having elk hunting knowledge is what separates those who succeed every once in a while against those who notch tags every year. There's a very fine line there, and there's a perfect amount of time if you're listening to this now to get through the entire course before September. Improve your chances with a virtual course of over 140 videos that cover things like how to get elk tags throughout the West, scouting and e-scouting, beginner to advanced elk calling, gear, fitness, nutrition, shooting processes, hunting scenarios, strategies, and tons more. They've got some very big names on this platform that give you their personal expertise as you go through the course. It's the best way to make you the best elk hunter as you get into the woods. So go to theelkcollective.com and use promo code The Western Huntsman for $20 off. It's normally $89, so when you use my promo code, it's going to be the best $69 you've spent on elk hunting, and I guarantee you it's worth every penny. Check it out, guys. Hoffman Boots. Let me give you guys a piece of advice from a dude with many miles on his feet. Never skimp on quality hunting boots. Hoffman Boots is a fourth-generation, family-owned company based in North Idaho. I've been sporting a pair of Hoffmans for close to a decade. Particularly, I like the Hoffman Explorer in the 8-inch. In my most humble opinion, again, Hoffman offers the most comfortable hunting boot that does the least amount of damage to my feet after several miles on the mountain. Very little break-in period on these boots, by the way. I took them right out of the box and went on a crazy elk hunt, not even a blister. For hunting, they have the Explorers and the Summit boot offered in insulated and non-insulated. And ladies, check out the new women's Hoffman Explorer 400. They also carry lineman boots, winter pack boots, logging boots, and hiking boots. Get totally outfitted at hoffmanboots.com, and at checkout, as you know it's coming, use promo code, all caps lock, Huntsman10 for 10% off. Last but not least, Tacticam. If you're interested in self-filming your hunts, whether for memories or making hunting content, check out the Tacticam products like the Spotter LR, Tacticam 5.0, and the Film Through Scope system, all of which are available at thewesternhuntsman.com, which helps support our fight against the anti-hunting movement. But my favorite is the Tacticam Reveal cell cams. I use these cell cams all over my property, and I'm like obsessed with monitoring the wildlife in real time with these cameras. They not only text me instantly when a buck or a bear is cruising through, my reveals make for excellent security systems. I know when the FedEx dude is delivering packages way down at the bottom of our driveway. And I also know if some knucklehead shows up to try to steal them. I know when someone's trespassing or if I have the kind of wildlife roaming around that I don't want, like a coyote. and I quickly react with my cat-like reflexes. Great for trappers, great for hunters, security, anything, guys. Check it out at tacticam.com because I don't have the reveals on my website right now. Let them know I sent you. Tacticam.com. Let's get back to the show. Here we go.
The sad thing about that whole thing was you had Stephanie Simic, their bear biologist, who was like, and their whole department was like, look, we don't see an issue with this.
Yeah, no, they didn't follow.
And like
they didn't follow the experts.
And they kept delaying it and going like, well, we need more information. And they're like, we're giving you all the information. And so that was like, if they just listen to the people that know what they're talking about and put their emotion out of the way, it's fine. We're good. Mm-hmm. And one thing I always tell people that are like, we got to watch how many bears and da-da-da. I'm like, look, one thing that has been constant since we put our feet on the soil of this country is we've been hunting bears.
Yep.
And even before that, the Native Americans did it. And what are we seeing right now? Why all that constant hunting has been going on? Record populations of black bears. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a pretty good little token to say, how is hunting ruining black bear populations?
Yeah,
it is not.
Such a good point. That's such a good point.
It is not. And the spring bear thing is silly. It is just silly. It's a limited quota spring hunt to top it all off.
I know it's not even like an over-the-counter thing. Yeah, it's. I mean,
no.
What was it, like 250 tags?
For the amount of bears that are in Washington, it's like ridiculously low. Like I think Washington in the lower 48 is one of the highest density bear states there is.
Yeah.
And
they have a ton of bears,
they have a spring quota, a limited quota entry. I'm like, that is silly. And there's guardrails in place so we don't kill sows with cubs, or we don't kill cubs. Like there's regulatory mechanisms in there to debunk everything that they're saying.
Totally.
But it was just when you have a commission and they knew going into it, they're like, these people talk. They're like, I bet we can get them in a 4-3 vote. Are you on my side? You on their side? They knew they had it the second they got their new appointees, and it was a done deal.
Yeah, I was super worried with the new appointees, and man, what a blow! What a freaking blow!
Is. And that's supposed to be our avenue to manage wildlife, and now I look at it as a laughable commission. You know, I just don't think they're ever going to do anything science-based, conservation-wise.
They don't have any credibility. If they would have listened to their own biologists and followed what the advice was of their own biologists, and understood the outcry, the public outcry from sportsmen and the conservationists that actually know the real biological science that goes into the wildlife management systems, and a spring bear that is less than 10% of the population in tags, of which only 60 or 70% of those tags, it was a high ratio of success in the state of Washington, but that speaks to the robust population that is there. And so it's this big combination of it's this big bag of bullshit that got blown out of proportion. It's really what it is, carried by these commission that had an agenda from the beginning, and now our friends in Washington are screwed out of a bear season in the spring. They can't even draw. It was already a draw, and now they don't even have that option. There's guides over there that depend on that revenue for their guiding service, and you can bet if it was some liberal company selling vegan tofu out of a Chevy it wouldn't be a Chevy, it'd be like one of those hybrid cars, or what are those called, a Prius selling that, the state would never step in and infringe on that type of business. But a bear hunting outfitter, screw them, man. Screw them and their families and the revenue that they were depending on from the spring bear hunt. I'm so mad about it, man. I'm so
it makes me crazy, and it's just it's going to be something that we're going to have to keep our eye on everywhere. You're even starting to see it down in Southwest Arizona, New Mexico, and stuff where you don't traditionally think that stuff's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to see this and they're going to be like, how did they get that done in Washington? Let's do that.
Yeah. Oh, totally. It's going to spread. That's why we have to watch it. We have to pay attention in California, what's going on there.
Yep.
When is that? When is the deadline for the California situation?
This week. This week
is it
coming
this
up.
week?
Yep. I think it's the 20th. I think they're going to hear it like that Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
They'll decide on that petition. So there's still time to. Hal's gonna do a big like a pre-meeting with anyone on Zoom that wants to get on there. If you get on their website, you can get on there, talk about the issue, and then they're gonna have a comment period, I believe, the next day or like 2 days later during the meeting, and then the commission will decide whether or not to like move forward with it or not.
Because it's a petition, right, to end bear hunting?
Yeah, it was a petition that is based on just total dog shit science. Yep. And research that I was just laughing at most of it. But that they have the power as that commission to say, look, this is stupid, it's gone.
Yeah. Or
they can say, well, this might merit some information from, and so that's kind of where we're at with that. But yeah, it's a big important day next week.
Have you gone on to the California Fish and Wildlife website? I think it's Fish and Wildlife. I can't keep up with all these different state agency names.
I
know. And pulled up the commissioner tab and actually read what these commissioners, like their backgrounds, things like that.
I haven't read on the actual commissioners. I've been on that commission tab a bunch, but I haven't actually read on the actual commissioners much.
Yeah. Well, I have. I'm worried for California, man. I'm worried for California. It's the commission from what is written on the kind of like their little biographies and stuff. It's not looking good. So that's
unfortunate.
I'm hoping the sportsman's voice can have more of an impact than it did in Washington, and it's going to take a lot, man, because hunters were vocal in Washington. I'm actually, for me, I know we spend a lot of time ragging on sportsmen being asleep at the wheel and hunters being asleep at the wheel when these issues come up, because they have been in the past. But I tell you what, more than I've ever seen did sportsmen come together and hunters, rally in Washington.
Absolutely.
And it just
across the country. People
I had dudes emailing me from Georgia asking how they can help Washington hunters. And so I was sending them. I just sent everybody to Howl for Wildlife at this point, and go sign up for that and send everything through there, and they send the messages. But I still think even with something like Howl for Wildlife, it's important for individual hunters to jump on and just copy and paste email addresses individually and write your own personal note to whether it's a legislator or a commissioner. I promise they get those, because I'm hearing more and more that some of these big group messages that are just kind of, pre-formulated or whatever, they oftentimes will fall on deaf ears. But if it's those combined with personal messages, personal emails coming from personal accounts, those get read quite heavily and taken into consideration. So there's just not a lot we could do to take our foot off the pedal. So let's kind of switch gears, man.
Yeah.
Before I have an aneurysm and get more gray hair, and
it is maddening.
We've got like I mentioned, and you mentioned it earlier. Spring bear opens tomorrow. In some states, it's open already. It's not open in Wyoming yet, right? It opens tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
That we have some archery only stuff opening tomorrow. I think there is some wilderness stuff that opens earlier in the fall, but I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, the earliest hunt for bears is archery only April 15th.
So, and just so everybody listening to this, obviously we recorded this last week as the time you're either, driving in your truck or whatever, listening to this episode. So when we say tomorrow, it is the 14th of April. So tomorrow for the April the 15th. So,
yes.
Bear season opens tomorrow. There's a lot of bear hunters in this audience, a lot of new hunters, a lot of veteran hunters, a lot of kind of in-between hunters that are gearing up for this spring bear. Unfortunately, our friends in Washington aren't. But hopefully they're getting tags in other states, and they're going to come down to Wyoming.
A lot of over-the-counter opportunities. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. I mean, there is a lot of opportunity for them.
There really are. And that is a viable option. Like, and it's not that far. I mean, I don't know about you, Joe, but I spent a lot of time in my truck. So,
oh yeah,
I would totally drive. Like if I lived in like the Tacoma area, I would totally drive to Wyoming for a bear hunt, or Idaho or Montana. It's not that far. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, I don't mean to promote non-resident hunting. By God, that's a sin. But it's out there, and we need to support those guys because they lost their bear hunt. So let's leave that there and talk about there is basically, the way I see it, there are 3 ways to hunt a bear. Well, there's probably a lot more, but 3 main ways. There's baiting, there is spot and stalk, and there is calling for bears. And I'd love to get your feedback on those as we're kind of going into spring 2022 bear season. Let's start with baiting, though.
I don't want you to forget one, because you're going to alienate a big group of bear hunters.
Okay. Oh, hounds.
Houndsmen.
Yes. You're right. I'm going to smack myself right now for missing my hound. My brothers and sisters out there behind the hounds.
We love them. So yeah.
Yes.
No, baiting. It's interesting, baiting. When I grew up in Montana, where we couldn't bait, and that's where I learned about bear hunting mostly. So when I moved to Wyoming, I was like, holy crap, you can bait here. I know nothing about it, but I'm going to try it. And so I had got some bait sites and started bait hunting, and fell in love with it for a couple reasons. One was like, you have a more intimate, I would say, like interaction with bears when you're bait hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I learned more about the actual species and like their nuances and how they live and what they do on a daily basis, bait hunting, than I did ever as a spot and stalk hunter.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Like you get to observe bears more bait hunting, and you get to learn about them with the cameras now we have, and like their travel, and you really become a student of black bears when you're bait hunting. Like you are so in on knowing all about them, because that's how you're bringing them to your bait. And so I love it for that. Like so many times I've sat in my tree stand and not even thought about taking the bear that was at the barrel, because I'm just like, I'm just going to sit here. This is amazing. Like I'm 20 yards away from this bear, and it's like, I can hear it chewing. And I just love that aspect of it. And really too, I encourage people that have never done it to try it if you're on the fence, like, or go with someone, because everyone thinks, there's that whole misconception that bait hunting is like this super easy thing and throw some donuts out and you're going to get a bear. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. It has cost me more, because I do both. And I will say, like, spot and stalk is in my blood. I love it. But bait hunting costs me more money and gas and bait and all the stuff that we use, more time, more energy. I mean, the trips hauling bait to where we go are exhausting.
Oh yeah.
And it's just so much work, and you have so much invested in it. And people think a little different. Like we just throw stuff out and, oh yeah, well, there's a bear. And it's not that way. Like it is a lot harder than it seems. And so when people say like, oh, that's not hunting, I disagree.
I totally disagree.
It's absolutely hunting.
Yeah.
And it's a way that we can hunt and manage the species. We can also learn about the species. And what a great way to get new bear hunters in the sport. Like you take a kid out that you're dragging around the mountains every night trying to find a bear for him through the glass, and like, man, we're not doing it, but you can plop them in front of a barrel in maybe a couple days, look over a couple bears and like have some cool interaction with them and teach them about bears. I'm like, that's such a great way to get kids or new hunters into the sport, is bait hunting. And so I love it. And it's a great tool.
Can I add one thing to what you were talking about as to the difficulty level with baiting? Is like you said, people have this perception that you just throw some donuts out there or whatever and then you sit there. It's not like that. It's not like that at all. You have to locate an area to set your bait in which the wind isn't going to give you away, in which sound, sight. You got to remember that bears smell. What was it, like 4 million times better or something crazy than humans? It's not 4 million, but
yeah, they could smell 2 miles away.
They could smell 2 miles away, and
it's better than a bloodhound. They have ridiculous noses.
And what I noticed about bears, man, is they are not like elk will, especially in the rut, they will periodically drop their nose guard. They will drop their guard when it comes to scent, and they will come out of curiosity and check something out. Bears, I don't think do that. I think they don't ever throw caution to the wind and say, screw it, let's see what happens. They live by their noses. And so the way you set up on your bait and the way those thermals are going and the way that whether you're, side hilling or up on top of a ridge or down in the bottom of drainage or wherever you're set up can really wreak havoc and play chaos on your setup. Like you'll have bears all over your camera when you're not there, but when you're there, nothing shows up. And so it's difficult. Yeah,
it
totally
is their nose, like you said. They don't. There's one sense that they might not trust over time. They might see something. I've seen them do this where they see you, but they're like, "Look, I can't really make out what that is. I'm cool." Mm-hmm. They never not listen to their nose.
Exactly.
Their nose is everything, and like you said, they will not. I mean, even if it's during the rut's different for them, right? So they're not like. It's just crazy how great their nose is and how much of a challenge you have. And I learned so much about wind. Growing up, I archery hunted. I rifle hunt now, and I archery hunt a little bit. But I learned more about wind baiting than I ever did hunting elk and deer in Montana.
Yeah.
I'm just like, holy crap. Like, there's so much that goes into it that you can't just go, like you said, you got to put in a lot of time and research into your area. And, a lot of people say, I always say this, like, you can feed bears. That's one thing. Go ahead.
Good point.
Anyone can feed the damn things. But trying to get one in the daylight in front of you when you're there is a whole different story.
Yeah, totally. I learned a valuable lesson, too, on somebody. I was kind of showing off my bait barrel that I'd made. And I made the holes too big, so the bears were able to get, whether I'm putting popcorn or dog food or whatever in the bottom of this barrel, it made it pretty easy for them. And some dude got on and chimed in, and he's like, man, like exactly what you said, Joe, you're not trying to feed the bears, you're trying to bait the bears, and you've made it too easy for them to feed. And so I went through a ton of bait out of that barrel, so I got rid of that barrel and replaced it. I love this stuff, man.
I learned a lot from Tad and Jeff over there, Tad Sherman and Jeff Morris, that, like I said, I only been baiting for like 15, 16 years now. And I think every year I have it figured out and something happens. But like minimizing my barrel size, the holes in my barrel, because I can't make trips every day to fill it. And you don't want to be in there every day. So I shrunk down my hole sizes a bunch. I make it harder for them to get the bait out the best I can, because I don't want them eating it all while I'm gone, and then I don't go back for 2 days and there's no food. They're going to leave eventually, especially in Idaho where there's a high concentration of baits. Wyoming's funky. We have 1 mile units that we get square by square, and we're the only ones that can bait in that square.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, so we have some regulation there where it's like, hey, this is my square. I can bait it. Now, anyone can hunt in there, but I'm the only one that can put bait legally in that unit.
So how do you get your square mile?
So what you do is they have a allocation period where you go online and you say, I want this square mile. And if it's available, you can get it. Then say you get your square mile. You pick a spot this year and you love it. Best square mile you've had. It's a great bear spot and you want to keep it. Well, the following year, they have a preference period. So they have a window where anyone that has a bait site from the year before that wants to keep that bait site, all you do is simply log in, claim it again, and you're good. If you don't claim it, then it goes up for public again. And so it's all regulated. Like I've had the same bait site for 15, 16 years, the one really good one I've had. And I'll do everything in my power never to lose it. But you see guys moving around a lot, and so that's what they have to do. But it is really nice that we take away that. I've heard horror stories in Idaho.
Yeah, that is pretty nice.
We don't have that. We don't have that here. So it also limits the bait density. So where if I don't maybe get to my barrel for 3 or 4 days and it gets low, like those bears are going to travel a longer distance to get to another bait. Where in Idaho, you might have a guy 200 yards away. So
and
you got to keep
that
it
happens
full.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's but I like it because I can't be there if it's 70 miles till I even get to where I park. And so then I have to drive over there after work, go up, bait it. And so I try and do it to where I'm not in the bait a lot. I don't want my scent around a ton. I want them comfortable in the bait. I want lots of bait there. I want them coming and going as they please. And I want more bears in there than I can handle, because then they start competing for that food source. And that's when you can draw those boars in, usually, is when there's some competition around.
And I got a question for you. Kind of a newbie question here. When you're baiting your barrel, are you using one of those barrels that like you seal the lid on with that bracket thing, like mine?
Yeah, you guys have a funky thing. I think you guys have to use metal, right?
I don't think so. I could be totally wrong. Everybody does,
plastic,
so I do.
I use plastic barrels. They're
really?
Lighter. They're so much lighter. And I use a 30-gallon one because I backpack mine in quite a ways. So I just use like not a 55 or whatever that is. I use the next size down. And then what we do is I have a buddy that builds them. He actually cuts a small square in the top of it through that plastic, and we put a latch on it. And that's how I get the bait in. And then I shut it and latch it. And then I have a small, it's not a very big hole on the front. And then I have some holes on the side, tiny little 1-inch holes on the side to let like grease come out and let them get a piece of popcorn or dog food here and there. And then I ratchet strap them to the tree and chain them a little bit higher so they can't just like muscle that thing around and tip it over and get all the stuff out.
Gotcha.
So that's what I use I use a plastic barrel.
So I'm gonna pose this question to you listeners out there, specifically Officer Steve Roberts. If you guys know about that, obviously I can look it up when we're done recording, but it's a good little exercise here. If you guys know if we can use plastic in the state of Idaho for a barrel, let me know. Email jim@thewesternhuntsman.com. Again, I'll look it up, but the point is I want to know, and I'll announce it on the next episode and just try to have it a solid answer for you guys. My question was, Joe, when you're rebaiting your barrel, whether it's plastic or metal or whatever, do you like wear gloves to keep your scent off the barrel itself, or is that like overkill?
No, so I have I've done some hunting trips up in Canada, and I've seen some pretty unique situations up there. They do have a gob of bears, so it's a little different, but I want my scent in there, but I don't want my scent in there to where they're like, dude, this guy is never not here, so I only come in the dark. Like, I want my scent in there when I set the bait. So then when they decide to come in, they smell me, but they decide to come in and I'm gone. And they're like, okay, nothing bad happened. And for like 3 weeks until we start hunting it, or 2 weeks, they're still smelling me and they're getting a food reward. They're smelling me, getting a food reward.
That
and
makes
then
sense. Okay.
I slip in there, not go to the barrel, and whether or not I'm with someone or whatever, I slip in there and we try and take them, and they're like, oh, it's the same smell that's been in here. So I do try and keep, like when I'm going to rebait and stuff, minimal people at the barrel. So it's the same people or just that same scent. And I've done this before. Like if I'm the one hunting and I know I'm the guy that's going to be hunting, I'll hang, like the day we set baits, I'll hang a sweaty ass t-shirt above where I'm going to sit.
Oh, that's exactly what I was going to ask you.
And then, like, for the first couple of weeks when those bears are coming in and they catch that whiff, they get comfortable with it enough to where they're like, I'll come sneak in here at dark. And sometimes I feel like that helps me, and that's just mine. I've heard so many different, like, people and different point of views on this, and none of them are wrong. I think it's just whatever works for each person. Some people are like total maximists, like rubber boots, rubber gloves.
Yeah. I've heard those extremes.
I've gone through that too in my head. I'm like, maybe I should be doing this. Like, I've had a bad year. And then it's like, well, for me, mentally, that's what works. But I don't think any of them are wrong. But that's what I do.
No, and that was one of the follow-up questions to what you're saying is, I got a buddy who he's a guide for bear. up here in my neck of the woods, and that's exactly what he said, was hang a shirt, like a sweaty shirt, kind of in the vicinity of your bait barrel, and that gets them a little more comfortable with your scent. Obviously, that's going to be, stronger when you're there than just a sweaty shirt 3 days later, but it does help, and so that's what he was saying, and so I just kind of wanted to bounce that off of you and see what you thought, and
yeah,
that's enough for me, man.
I have a couple shirts that have they chew on them. They end up chewing on them. I have a couple that
don't take like a nice shirt.
Don't put your best shirt up there. I got one that I use, and it's funny. Like, I'll run my baits in, and I'm all sweaty, and I take that off, change my shirt, and that's the one I'll hang. And it seems to work. I think like the alarm bell just is not as loud in their head, and that's what ultimately leads to success in baiting, is a little bit of comfortability. They always know they're doing something wrong. If you watch them come in, I think they always know you're there, and I think they always know they're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They never, little bears will come running in like, but like a good bear is like, they're sneaking in, they're looking over at you, and it's almost like, dude, that thing knows I'm here.
Yeah.
But it probably doesn't, but it's smelling, and it's just like, okay, nothing's really that much different than last night.
Something's
I'm gonna
off.
sneak in here. So I think that with baiting, it's just comfortability. Now, I like my bait sites and my tree stands to be close. Like, that's the lure for me.
What do you mean?
I know guys out here, I like to be like 30, 40 yards. If I'm rifle hunting even, I'll put my bait at like my tree stands. Right now I have one because we've been doing some veteran hunts and some youth hunts. I have the stand about 100 yards back, and it's a ground blind I built. But if I'm hunting, I have tree stands that are like in that same bait or different baits where I'll have them like 30 yards, even with the rifle. Those farther ones, wind is not going to be as big of an issue. It's still important, but there's guys I know that are like, my bait's 300 yards, and they don't seem to have problems with those bears coming in the daylight, but.
That's I don't know.
There's some guys that'll whack a bear a long ways out over bait, and it works for them. And
I guess it would work. It would work. It feels like it takes away some of the intimacy of baiting for me.
For me, I like that close up. Like, I want them to like, oh man, that thing's right behind me. Like, I love that, but it's not for everyone. Some people get a little unnerved with it too, and so like, I think that's another thing to look at. Like, if you're just kind of like getting into it, like maybe the first year set back a little bit. And just kind of see what it's doing. And then maybe be like, next year I want to get a little closer and move in and like ease into the learning a little bit more, not try and tackle like an 8-yard shot with your bow and your tree stand the first year you've ever done it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a lot of good information, man. I'm gonna have to listen to this episode back so I can like I need to figure out how to like take notes when I have experts like you on the show.
Well, you got the ability to listen over again.
Yeah, I can totally do. I have the technology. What about spot and stock? You got like top 3 of your like best tips for people out there spot and stocking?
I do. It's patience is number one.
I said that right.
Patience and consistency is the number one thing I will tell anyone that wants to start spot and stock hunting. You have got to be able to put in time, and you've got to be able to put in that time like on a consistent basis. It's just different than deer and elk hunting, right? Like, you're not going to go out and find a herd and I saw like 8 elk today, or I saw 10 bulls, and you're looking for one animal that likes to be hidden in a forest and not be seen. And you're often looking in a lot of country. And so what I learned a long time ago with it was like, if you're going to commit to spot and stock hunting and you want to learn, like, make it be the thing that you do for a few years and get like seeing a few bears under your belt, and like, just be patient with the process though, because and I'll give you guys some ideas of where I like to look, but like,
yeah, that was my question. Where
it's a ton of glassing, but for me, like early in the season, and this year's going to be weird because of this late snow, but like early in the season, they want grass. And so I look for big funnels. Like, if I'm e-scouting, I look for like a giant funnel that is made by drainages. So I'm like, oh, that drainage is 12 miles long. The head end of it is all like north facing, rocky, denny country, right? Then I'm like, okay, if a bear's den there, it's got to come out. And where's the first food? Like, it's going to hang out of it by its den for a few days and kind of like wake up and be unhung over, like I'm sure they feel. And then when they start feeling like it's time to eat, they got to find food. And where's the first food? Oftentimes in the early spring, the first food is in the creek bottom. And people overlook those creek bottoms like crazy when they're bear hunting, because everything they read and everything they've been told is to look on the hillsides in the green meadows. And those creek bottoms green up way faster than the hillsides do.
Like, can I ask you a question about that? When you say creek bottom, are you talking about like those super canopied out, shady type kind of creek bottoms, or are you talking maybe more of an open? Maybe there's some like those willows down in the bottom of the creek there. You know what I'm talking about? Sunny, shady. What's your take?
Kind of both. It's interesting. Like we've taken bears out of kind of like those shady. There's a 10 by 10 patch in the timber along the edge of the creek that's got some green grass on the edge, and we've also taken them in like meadows that are in the bottoms. You know, like maybe a 200-yard meadow that's long. And there's timber on both sides, you know, and like they're hitting the edges of those.
For that. I've got a great spot for that. I'm going to try that.
They're hitting the edges of those super early because there's green grass hitting right there. Right, that's the first green grass of the year.
Okay.
And then as they start getting their bellies full, they sleep and drink a lot. They need water, they need good food and cover right there in those creek bottoms. Then as the sun starts hitting and warms up and those hillsides start greening up, these bears start moving back towards the higher elevations, but they follow the snow line and they follow the green grass. So early on, I'm looking in creek bottoms and stuff, and then I'm moving up the hillside as the spring goes on, kind of. And it could be a drainage or one mountain that you watch, maybe down low early and follow it up. But I really like to I like to get in places where I can watch a creek bottom, or my favorite way to do spot and stalk hunting is I have several of those places where the wind is perfect. If I still hunt, just kind of slowly walk up the creek bottom, like 2-3 miles. And you're like around every corner, you know, like, oh, there's that one meadow right here. I hope there's one in there. Nothing's there. I'm going to go to the next meadow. And like, you can do that the whole day, you know, and that's a great way to, a lot of guys don't, I won't say a lot of guys, but it was pretty common when I was growing up and learning how to spot and stalk hunt to just kind of like be on roads and glass and cover a lot of country glassing. And I kind of learned like there's not a lot of dudes out just hiking spring bear hunting. And I was like, man, there's some great stuff off the road that you can't see that aren't even like hard walks, that you could just like park your truck on a logging road, walk into this one spot, take a right, and then you're in this beautiful lush bottom or valley, you know?
Yeah.
And
totally.
Those are great spots to look. But always being able to try and find a good vantage is really helpful, and like being able to look over a lot of country. It seems like in our area where I struggled for a few years around Cody finding bear spot and stalk, because I would look in all the traditional great black bear spots. Like if I was in Montana, the spot I'm looking at would have a bear in it. When I moved to Wyoming, it just had a grizz in it, you know? So I was like, man,
are you talking like those dark timber kind of areas? And because I don't
like timber, like meadow, like a big park on a hillside surrounded by timber, and there's only one thing of grass and it's in that park, and that's where a bear's at. Or like a beautiful long lush green meadow, there's elk in it and stuff, and at the head end of that thing will be a grizz. And it's like everywhere I was kind of learned to look for black bears had grizzlies in it in Wyoming. And I'm like, I was going years, it's like 6 and 7 to 1. For every 7 or 8 or 6 grizz I'd see one black bear. And I was just like, this is frustrating.
That is frustrating.
So I started finding them. I started finding black bears in Wyoming more in fringe country. Like, okay, beautiful big meadow. There should be a bear in this. Oh, wait, up in the rocks up there on this slide with barely any grass is a black bear. Or down in this canyon with like 3 trees and green grass is a black bear. Like, I just started finding them in weird spots. So I started like focusing my attention. I still look at those great spots, but I start looking like, I look at everything now where I maybe wouldn't have in the past.
When you're kind of when you've got a vantage point and you're observing the terrain in front of you, do you have a take or a suggestion as to, are you focusing a lot on kind of the face of the opposite, mountain, hill, whatever, or do you put some focus on ridge lines and bottom of drainage kind of areas, and I'm just talking not moving, you've got your vantage point. The reason I ask, I guess, Joe, is there's this one spot that I hunt, actually I hunt elk there, but it's like these two smaller creek drainages, and when I say small, they're like, you just kind of hop across it, like that little creek. What's that movie where they're guarding the bridge? And the dude won't let the people cross the bridge, but you can just hop.
Men in Tights.
Yeah, that one, and they're
Yeah.
like, the dude's like, this ain't exactly the Colorado, and just jumps across it,
Yeah.
and the guard gets
Yeah.
all pissed. Anyway, that's what I'm talking about. That size of kind of creek, little stream coming down the bottom of the drainage. But what happens is they're coming down in like this V shape, and there's this like beautiful ridge that goes between them, up, splitting the drainage in two. And I've seen a ton of bear tracks on that during elk season, specifically on the lower half of that, where the two creeks kind of meet and form the bigger drainage going down the rest. Is that a viable place to look in the spring, or is that more of like a fall bear hunt?
It's interesting. Like, I think it sounds like it's an awesome spot. Like, I love spots like that. Like, especially if you can't see it from a lot of places.
Yeah, no, you can't. It's a hike. It's a hike. Like, nobody goes back there.
They can make their living in like a very small patch. And it's funny how they like to be in the shadows. They love the shadows, it seems like. And they'll be out in the middle of the sun, but it's like, I just seem to see them more like on the edges in the dark shadows, and those creek bottoms and those places where there's timber and grass, they feel so comfortable there, right? Because they're not out and vulnerable. And so I think like that, just because there's tracks in the fall, I don't know that there wouldn't be tracks there in the spring either. I guess it'd be a snow thing, and there's probably some bears using it in the spring. I mean, you got that V. That's what I look for, that funnel.
Yeah, it's
gotta
a funnel.
Come out of the high country. Yeah. They're going to come down, and they're going to just follow those creeks down. And they follow those creeks down, and bears are like people, path of least resistance. They are going to try and go on trails. They're going to try and go on edges where they don't have to go over a ton of logs. They're conservationists, man. They're always thinking about building fat.
Yeah.
They're like, how do I conserve energy? How do I conserve fat? How do I do this? And so they just take the path of least resistance to the first food they can find. And that sounds like a really good little pocket there. And if you could find a spot like where you could see some of it, or maybe still hunt into it a little bit, and kind of get on the edge and just sit in glass, and there brings in calling, great areas to call.
Okay. Let's talk about calling for a minute. What do you recommend call-wise?
I use what I've always used, and I don't know if it's right or wrong. I have two calls on my lanyard. I have like a predator call. So it's just like a rabbit in distress.
Uh-huh.
And then I have a fawn bleat that I use. And those are basically the only two that I use. And I've had some mixed results with both. What I did a few years ago, when I was still living in Montana, I bought a Fawn Decoy.
Son of a bitch, man! I had my Fawn bleat. I wanted to try it and have you give me feedback on it. I had my predator call though.
Those big bears eat a lot of fawns, and that's one of their main food sources. I see it on bait seasons when we bait. Whenever the calves and the fawns start dropping, we start seeing less of our big bears on camera. And we bait in a calving area. It's just kind of where they're at most years. And so I think what they're doing is they're like bears supplement with bait. That's not their only. They'll eat grass over bait, and they'll eat fawns and calves over bait. So I like to use like anything. Like I feel like a rabbit call is great to get their attention, but honestly, like a fawn bleat and then a Fawn Decoy that I've used. I've hunted a lot in Montana on calving grounds with calls and decoys. And
you don't happen to have your bleat call there, do you?
I do not.
Okay.
All my stuff. It's like
now that's my rabbit in distress call. Hang on. Dang, I thought I had it sitting right here, man. I was gonna totally. I have an elk calf call, but I can't.
Honestly, like anything like that, that's what they key in on it. I think certain times of year they work better. Like Doug Bowes in Washington's a great caller, and he does a ton of it.
Mm-hmm.
I call most of the time. I don't call early season. It just seems like I can't get him interested in it.
Early season defined by like pre-May 15, you think?
Yeah, I guess it depends on where you're at and how long the bears have been out and on natural grass and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like they get to a point where they're like, okay, I'm ready to start like finding other food sources, whether it be meat or bait barrels or whatever. And that's kind of the key. And I think it's always kind of around calving and fawning season. And so those are great times to be out there with a call when you know fawns and calves are hitting the ground and you're in an area where maybe they're doing that. These big boars and even some of the older sows will frequent those areas. They've done it for years, and those are great areas to call.
Gosh, I wish I had that call. I so wanted to get your take on how you, like, what do you define, like, exactly how do you do the fawn bleat?
Yeah, it's just playing around with it.
I'm just going to use this other call just to kind of give you an idea. It's a fawn, or I'm sorry, this is like a rabbit in distress call, but I'm going to mimic like I'm doing a fawn bleat, and I want you to kind of tell me what I'm doing wrong with it, okay? Because I'm screwing it up. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
So let me see what this thing even sounds like. I don't even know what call this is. Okay, so just something like. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that I think would work fine. Like it's like an elk in the rut, right? Like a bull when he's hot will come into the most horrendous sounding bugle on the planet.
Totally.
I think these bears just need that, and like it's really nice if you can see the bear when you're calling, because you can. I've seen them sometimes hang up when you quit calling. Like they don't just hear it once and come in. Not always, but
I've heard that a lot.
I've heard them hang up, like their attention span is smaller. So they are like, oh, I don't hear it anymore. I'll just eat some grass. Hear it again. Oh, I don't hear it anymore. And so it's nice when you can see them, because if you're calling blind, you don't know when and where to stop. But I would say if you do a 20, 30-minute call session and nothing comes in, find a new location, because that bear could be far enough away where you're not going to bring him in, or there is a bear there that he's just not interested, because they are weird that way. They fall is great to call, because I think they're looking for anything like that.
So that going back to the fawn bleat kind of call, I'm super curious. Oh, okay, well, let me put it this way. Like I figured out the baiting thing to the extent of which I can get bears on my barrel, right? I think I have a pretty good handle on spot and stalk with bears. I've got really good areas. I've spotted them there before. I think I could be effective with that. But I have a passion for calling animals in. This is why I talk about September elk, and this is why I get super excited about spring turkey. I do have a passion for that. And so I just I don't really remember exactly what I was going to ask you, but the fawn in distress, are you kind of looking at that in the same capacity or way, like when you think of a lost calf when you're elk hunting,
Yeah, that's what I kind of yeah, like a locator, fawn locator, calf locator, like, hey, mom's not here, or something's going wrong, and I'm like reaching out to the herd or mom to get help or to locate them.
Okay, so
I think those bears get used to hearing that when they're hanging around these herds of calving and fawning deer and elk, and they kind of key in on that.
So I've got an elk reed here. It's not exactly a calf reed, but you can make it sound like that. Can I make some noise and you can tell me whether or not you think a bear would come in? This is how we learn, man. I know I probably sound ridiculous, but let's try it. Make sure. Okay, so. Something along those lines?
Yeah, and I think the longer, like when you draw that out a little bit more even, it's really good. It just kind of is like, hey, like.
The low or the high?
I like the higher. Okay. You want to be more like a calf. I think Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And I've called bears in the fall. I did it one time up in the Pintlers in Montana, archery elk hunting.
Really?
Cow calling, and a bear came right in behind us, like, "Where's dinner?" And so I think you need to try and, like, it'd be good for you to, like, watch some of those YouTube videos or, like, listen to guys that are really good at it. Like, I'm not a great caller. My thing is, like, I sometimes forget about it as a tool. Like, I get going chasing things, spot and stalk hunting, and I'm like, oh shit, I should have tried to call that bear, and, like, we couldn't close the distance, until dark. And so I think I always forget about it, and I'm like, gosh dang. And I didn't as much it seemed like I did it more in Montana, but it would be cool, like, if you get into your spot and stalk area and you're like, man, there's a bear over there. It's not a big one. Bust out a call and see what happens. Like, God, practice so on them if you can.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of screwed either way. The I guess the worst case scenario is you're in the same situation. It's wandering off and you're never going to see it again. But there's a chance to call them in and turn them around.
There's definitely guys out there that are, like, got the bear calling, like, dialed in, and that's one thing that I know enough to get myself in trouble. I'll say that.
I don't even know that much, so I wish I could get in a little trouble out there. Like, I can call in turkeys and I can call in elk, but I'm really good at calling in coyotes, but I've never called in a bear.
Bud, you should be able to call in a bear. It just hasn't been something you've tried very much.
Yeah, well, exactly. I've tried it twice. And neither time. In fact, one time, the first time I tried to call in a bear, I called in a coyote. And that coyote had an unfortunate day as well. So,
yeah, and the one thing we have to remember when we're calling bears, like, people are always like, oh, they don't hear and they can't see. Look, they don't hear like an elk.
Yeah.
But they can hear. So, and a coyote's going to hear way better than a bear, probably. So I think you got to, like, think of that too when you're calling. Like, I don't know that you're going to great distance call a bear, but man, if you can get in tighter or even just see one, you're like, I'm going to see if I can get them across the canyon or something,
Mm-hmm.
and always when you're calling, keep the wind in mind when you're calling, because they will do similar things to coyotes and try and circle wind and do that whole thing. So,
okay. No, this is great stuff, man. This is great stuff. I've kind of kept you a long time. Do you want to kind of wrap this up?
I appreciate. I could talk about this stuff for days. So,
well, we might have to. We're gonna have to do this again. Obviously, I mean that's my
buddy.
problem with doing this podcast is every guest I have on, well, almost every guest, but most of the unless if it's a politician, this is not holding true. But every time I get a guest on, I've got like this new person that I'm super anxious to learn from or talk to more or dig deeper. And I'm always like, okay, we're going to get you back on the show. And I like legitimately mean it. And so I want people to come back on the show and let's talk more, because we just kind of scratched the surface with the first discussion. And I feel like it's the second and third discussions where things get really deep and we really cover some distance.
I would be happy to come back on and talk about anything. Like, I've been following your show for a long time, so it was a pleasure to come on it and visit with you. And, like, we're all learning, right? Even if I think I know a lot, like I always tell my daughter who's starting to hunt now, it's just like every time you're out there, you learn something new. Like, even if you think you're an expert or like listening to podcasts or reading books or anything, like, we'll never know enough. Mm-hmm. And so, like, anytime I can learn or talk to someone else about it, I love doing it. I love to learn and to share my passion. So
me too. And it's easy. It's such a, that's the thing. And I think that's part of some hunters' problems is they feel like, and I was guilty of this. That's why I feel comfortable saying it, is I thought I was the shit when it came to mule deer hunting. It turns out, Joe, I am not the shit when it comes to mule deer hunting. I'm a decent mule deer hunter, but there's there's some people out there that just blow my mind, and I love getting humbled by people, and I think that's part of the problem is hunters, there's this massive ego side to hunting and being a hunter. And I think that ego can sometimes get in the way in terms of, being open and humble enough to learn from new people. And I explained that to my daughters yesterday. That I told you I went turkey hunting. Took the girls over to my buddy's place, and we hunted turkeys and got a couple of jakes down. And I'm like 10 years older than this guy, but I learned a lot from him. Like, he's a good turkey caller. I thought I was a good turkey caller. Like, he's a good ass turkey caller. And when you put like his knowledge and my knowledge together, we had a ton of turkey encounters. And if people close themselves off to learning from people, no matter what you think your experience level is, matched and meshed against somebody else, you'd be surprised what you could learn from even beginner hunters. Because beginner hunters, especially adult beginner hunters, have super interesting perspective, like questions that you wouldn't think to ask yourself. You know what I mean? Like, they think of things.
It's so true.
It's so true, man. Like, they
I have a buddy that just is a late onset adult hunter.
Uh-huh.
And he challenges me a lot because he makes me think of things that are out of my normal range of thinking that I grew up thinking. Like, well, we can't, this is this way. And he's, well, why? Well, I don't know. That's just the way I grew up, And so it's like, it's very interesting perspective. I love it and the excitement that they have is like reinvigorates me. And when I get around people like that are like so excited, and I'm like I'm never burnt out on hunting, but I forget, they remind me why I love it.
Yeah.
Right. They're so like, true. This is so cool. And you're so lucky you've done this your whole life. And you're like, you know what? I am super lucky that my dad got me into hunting and my grandpa did. And like, I've lived where I do because I got to do this. And it reminds you sometimes, and that can be humbling as well. And I think we've all gone through parts in our life where we thought we were that guy. And I think that's a progression of hunters sometimes, is like you go through like learning to I'm the expert to, man, I thought I was the expert, but I don't know shit.
Yeah.
And we're all getting to that stage now where we're like, man, if I can learn more, like,
yeah, totally.
I'm going to be better and I can share it with other people. And that's how I feel about bear hunting. Like I admittedly, like, it's my passion. And people are always like, man, and I'm like, look, what I know probably compared to some bear hunters that you'll never talk to is small. Like, there are guys out there that'll run circles around most of us. And it's like, that's the guys I want to talk to. Like, what are their secrets,
Yeah, no, totally. I love that stuff. And it's just amazing. Social media was an eye opener for me. Like, before social media, I thought I was a decent hunter. And then I started figuring out, like, you could see, such and such hunter who lives in Wyoming and such hunter, down 2 hours south of you. And then another hunter over in Montana. And it's like, holy crap, man. Like,
it opened up the world.
It does. And I love that. That's what I love about social media, is it opened a lot of doors and networking opportunities and learning opportunities. It's like, man, their fingernail clippings are better hunters than I am. And
yes,
this is,
I feel like that now.
Yeah. So anyway, no, this is a great conversation. Guys listening, go jump on Instagram, and it's going to be in the show notes, but you can jump on Western Bear Foundation, at Western Bear Foundation on Instagram, and check out Joe. Joe, do you have a different Instagram account, or is it that one?
I have my personal one, and then just Joe Kondelis, but the Western Bear Foundation's at Western Bear Foundation. And then our website's westernbearfoundation.org, and we're on Facebook as well, just under Western Bear Foundation.
Awesome. So I can't thank you enough for coming on. I think I think we covered a lot of good ground, man. We talked about the importance of foundations like the Western Bear Foundation, and we didn't cover what it's going to be, but we'll leave that for next time.
That'll be a good conversation next time.
Perfect. And so let's plan on that. But we covered, what we're doing with the anti-hunting movement out there, and we covered a lot of really good spring bear hunting tips. So I really appreciate you coming on, man. I got a new friend, and I'm gonna have to make another visit down to Cody, Wyoming.
I'm bummed we didn't get a chat when you were here last time, but that just means we'll have to do it again.
We'll have to do it again, man. I am not opposed to going to Cody, Wyoming again, so no worries.
Oh, yeah, man. Love it.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate it, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks, buddy.
You made it all the way to the end. thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.